Okay, hi. It is Saturday, March 14th. The Oscars are tomorrow, and I'm recording this very quickly because I want to tell you why I don't think One Battle After Another should win Best Picture. Okay, and I'm also doing this today because I'm pretty nervous that it's going to, so I just want this to be on the record rather than like me reacting angrily about its win. I want to get my thoughts out ahead of what happens tomorrow. But I am going to start with what I liked about it. Okay. I did have an immensely fun time watching this movie. I really did. I saw this movie twice. I saw it in theaters once and then I watched it at home. It is an excellently paced, very, very well crafted film. Each sort of like act of the movie has its own unique rhythm, but each of those unique rhythms I think is like equally exciting. I think the performances are all lived in without feeling muted or withholding, and it interacts so well with its score. That's one thing that I've particularly been thinking about, and also with its production design. It possesses many of the qualities of PTA's work that I do think truly make him a really, really, really talented filmmaker. I will give you some examples. The camera work throughout is so alive, and that is kind of a through line of PTA's skill throughout all of his work. His sort of signature style is this kind of panoramic style. Like it's the camera's always searching, it's always responding to what it's seeing, never capturing like a composed image. I also really like that Paul Thomas Anderson lets in a lot of mistakes. He lets focus wander in and out, he lets light kind of exist naturally, wander in and out of shots. Like he's not doing things right. Even though he's very like dedicated to the craft of film, he lets mistakes in throughout. He lets accidents play out, and that feels as though he's always leading the camera from a place of curiosity rather than a place of control. And I think what this allows is this allows him to illuminate moments of real, like authentic human truth happening between people. And in turn, that allows me as the audience member to just like forget entirely that these are actors delivering lines. And instead, I think that this like very human feeling that the camera has allows me to greet these characters with a pretty immediate like suspension of disbelief, and that makes it really easy for me to just like jump in and go along for the ride and like really experience something with them. It is almost as if like you can't I think in a lot of movies you can feel the presence of a director, which I do think is interesting. Like one of my favorite directors ever is Baz Luhrmann, who like you watch a Baz Luhrmann movie and Baz Luhrmann is all over it. Like you can feel his presence in like every single choice that you're taking in, every single element of the movie. But I think what works really well about PTA is that he has an ability to almost like make himself invisible and yeah, almost like blend into the world, and that makes it feel like he's capturing something very, 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 very real. And I also think that this remarkably like again kind of like lived in quality allows for his actors to deliver really bold but really human performances in like every single one of his films. So like Joaquin Phoenix in The Master comes to mind, and then Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love comes to mind. There's often almost a like over the top quality to a lot of performances in PTA films, but they maintain a very human center. And I do think that this is true in One Battle After Another. So, all of this obviously is a result of PTA being a remarkably skilled director. His proficiency in like every technical aspect of being a director and a writer is very high. And part of that comes from his, as I mentioned, just like dedication and love for the craft of filmmaking. This is the world that he was brought up in. And I find I find actually that I think I connect with a lot of I think I connect with the style of a lot of PTA's films because he's the same age as my parents. And so they, both PTA and my parents came of age with the very like sentimental and often kind of like fantastical large scale movies of the 80s. And so those are, of course, the movies that my parents shared with me as I grew up. And these are the movies that PTA is both, more covertly inspired by and is often also making direct references to his films. PTA's movies are a bit like film bro Inception in that way. He is like directly referencing so many films that came before him to the point that he has been people have said that he has ripped things off, but it just makes film nerds like levitate in their seats when he makes a direct reference to something and they can recognize it. That is like film bro Inception. That is a big part of the reason that I think PTA has this like cult following. But here's the other thing about Paul Thomas Anderson, okay? He worships the script. And to use his words, he and I agree on this concept, which to quote him directly is a film's success is contingent upon having a good script. Period, end of story. That's how I feel about plays. I think that a good script is absolutely necessary for a project to be successful. And to quote him again directly, this quote's funny. I'm there just to be the guy who's just maybe kind of fun to hang out with. The script is the director. And this is ironic to me because I think ugh, I think that One Battle After Another's script is its most aching flaw. My favorite movies are ones that allow me three things. A, they allow me to surrender completely into a world, to just suspend disbelief completely, and uh, just allow me to completely surrender to the experience. B, they make me feel deeply alongside what the characters are feeling as I'm going through the movie. And then three, post the movie, they have me thinking and digesting and really diving into like the substance behind both the story and then the way that the story is told. One Battle After Another certainly checks the first two boxes for me. I was completely surrendered while watching it. I was really feeling a lot. I was laughing. I was really moved at certain points. However, quickly, upon starting to kind of do my thinking through of the story after seeing it, I realized that there really wasn't as much substance to dive into as perhaps meets the eye. And here's what I will give him, okay? Satire is very hard to write, and that is what this movie is. It's a satire, it's a satirical action comedy. He is, I think, pretty clearly satirizing both the radical left and the radical right. He is satirizing both the Christmas Adventurers Club and the French 75. That is also why I think that Benicio del Toro's character, Sensei Sergio, has the strongest writing in the film because he acts as the grounding foil to both of these satirical schemes. He and his network are calm, they're organized, they're focused, and they're selfless. And these are obviously the qualities that the other two networks are really struggling to possess. However, he's also really funny and he carries some of the film's best jokes and best lines. And he and Bob's relationship, Bob is Leonardo DiCaprio, bring in what is frequently a very strong relationship dynamic in PTA's writing, which is a very tender, very loyal friendship between two men. My problem, of course, you could probably see where this is coming if you know me. My problem is with the women. In my opinion, in my professional opinion, okay, One Battle After Another is Perfidia's story. She's the first shot of the movie, and the entire plot is set into motion because of her motivations and her actions. She is clearly the focus of the first act, that first like 45 minutes, because even after she leaves Leo, she leaves Bob and the baby, we still see more of her. There's even more of her after the point at which she exits the story. That said, I think that this movie sort of looks towards Perfidia's inner conflict between her commitment to resistance and motherhood, but that's kind of all it does. It's sort of just like gazes at that idea, which is actually like a really rich nuance, and then it kind of just turns and looks the other way. And this, I think, is the ultimate flaw of the movie. because I think that understanding Perfidia's vision for the world is essential to making the rest of the story as it is laid out work. But I don't think we really get that. We understand, both through PTA's writing and Teyana Taylor's performance, which I really did enjoy, that she is a relentless fighter. But what I don't think we get a clear sense of is what it is she's fighting for and why does it matter to her and how did she come to this work. We don't know anything about her past, about her background, and that all feels very important for why she ultimately leaves, which then sets up the literal rest of the entire movie, like, and every subplot. It's the core thing, it's the inciting incident of everything, and we don't really have any clear sense of why it's happened. The Christmas Adventurers Club's vision is far clearer than the vision of PTA's imagined group of Black radicals, which we never really hear anything about at all. We know explicitly what it is that the Christmas Adventurers want the world to look like. And that allows us to better understand why they will go to the extremes that they will go to fight for that vision. But Perfidia and her comrades in the French 75 never say anything more than, in my opinion, virtue signaling slogans. Even in her intimate scenes with Leo, when she's telling him that she is a fighter and that, you can't take the fight from her, we never find out why she is that way, again, where she comes from, or exactly what it is that she wants to be different about the world that she's willing to go to extremes for. Extremes in this case mean leaving her child. And this is kind of true for all of the Black women in the movie. When Jungle Pussy waves her gun around and marches on the desks at the bank in the sort of heisty moment, she declares, "This is what Black power looks like." But we never get any ideas of what Black power means. So, when Willa, the daughter, starts having questions about her mother throughout the second half of the movie, no one really has any good answers for her. And we as an audience aren't grounded in a clear sense of Perfidia's motivation, which really, again, I think should be the spine of the whole film. And it seems like none of the characters really do either. Like, the characters we have left after the 16-year time jump seem to not really be tied to any sense of that vision either. At this point, they're just kind of trying to protect themselves. And not only are they like so untied to any sense of a vision, if there ever was any at all, they're readily willing to disparage Perfidia and her work. All we hear of her throughout the entire second act of the movie, the like cat and mouse chase of both Leo and Sean Penn trying to get to Chase Infinity, all we hear of Perfidia in that entire part of the movie, which I do think is the strongest part, is that she's a rat. That's what they call her over and over and over again. And then not even in the coda of the movie, when Willa receives Perfidia's letter, do we get this question answered. The second time through, I was like, I really need to listen to this because like maybe this is where it all reveals itself, and maybe this is where we get like a really crystallized version of like what it is that he's saying with this whole thing. I want to know so badly, what does Willa truly believe after everything that they've been through of who her mother was and of who her father is? And how are those things influencing the choice that she makes in the end, which is to participate in the movement herself? Perfidia is the first shot of the movie, and Willa is the last, which again to me makes it seem as though this is Perfidia Beverly Hills' story. And I think that this clearly symbolizes a passing of the torch and a continuation into the next generation. But I still don't have a clear sense of what the specific thing is that they are fighting for. What does Perfidia Beverly Hills believe freedom looks like? That's what I want to know. And not even her letter to Willa clarifies that vision, so we don't have a great sense of what inherited vision of freedom Willa is then fighting for in the end either. And I think there's a pretty clear reason for this major misstep in the script, and it's because part of what makes PTA a good writer, generally, is that he practices an artistic proverb that I too subscribe to, which is write what you know. And that is why the strongest part of this movie is the second act, the father's journey to protect your children from the absurdities of this world, and even more specifically, the experience of being a white father to mixed race children. PTA has 4 children with his wife, Maya Rudolph, the oldest of whom is a 20-year-old daughter. That is why Leo shines in this movie, and that's why I think that Willa is the best female character. They carry the lived in quality that is often what makes PTA's work great. These are the people he knows. In the case of Bob, that's who he is. He knows these characters on a deeply personal level. He's able to laugh at them, but he's also able to deeply care for them and give them a clear sense of vision and a strong, motivated relationship. However, like I said earlier, the way that the story is structured relies heavily on Perfidia, who is, of course, the character that PTA himself is the furthest from. And I think that because of that, this movie really walks a line in certain moments of over sexualizing the black female protagonist and using her as an oversimplified plot device rather than really exploring the nuances of her character. Which to me means that this movie certainly brings up questions about identity and questions about value and of if every part of this movie is a story that PTA is the right person to tell, and elements of it run the risk, if not cross the line, of utilizing woke aesthetics, if you will, without really being able to grapple truly with genuinely progressive ideas. I will also just add like a couple of quick things that I didn't like about this movie. I really didn't like how it ended. It didn't make sense to me at all that Bob would just kind of concede on all of the protective measures that he'd taken before, specifically by getting them both iPhones. And I didn't like that he got to just kind of like go back to his lazy stoner thing and just like sit on the couch taking selfies while Willa is the one who goes out to go back to protest, which she also does evidently with like no equipment or protection or plan. It's obviously a bit heavy-handed with this like cycle repeating itself, like young people will carry the light messaging, but those specific choices just like don't really make sense to me given what we've seen them go through with, the 90 minutes that have preceded the ending. Like wouldn't what they experienced only make them kind of more paranoid? Wouldn't it make Bob double down on the rules? Wouldn't it make Willa kind of finally understand them? Why would they go back to the same house? Why would they want phones? It seems to me like the threat of the military would not disappear. It would, in fact, maybe only get worse if Willa is choosing to participate in the movement herself. So that just didn't make sense to me. This is all just to say that, like, I did really enjoy watching this movie. I had fun watching this movie. And I think it would be very fair for this movie to take certain performance awards. I could get on board with this movie winning cinematography, winning editing, winning production design, but I think that there are stronger scripts in the best adapted screenplay category. And I just really, 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 really don't think it's the best picture. I personally am like boots on the ground, hoping and praying that Ryan Coogler and Sinners take the big awards tomorrow. Remember, like that thing I said earlier about the 3 things that I need a movie to do. I need it to be cinematic enough that I completely surrender into the experience. I need it to really make me feel things. And then I want it to really make me think and engage with rich storytelling concepts after I've seen the movie. And I personally just like cannot think of a clearer example of a movie that checks all 3 of these boxes than Sinners. And it does all of these things while also subverting genre and also subverting expectations at kind of every turn, both in the story and in the story of its making. And it just is like so excitingly demonstrating to me innovation within the craft that I think really pushes the boundaries of what we imagine film to be capable of. And I just want to see that being awarded. If you want to know like more about why I love Sinners so much and why it also kind of serves as like a foil to some of the flaws that I think that this script has. I'm going to be putting out an essay very shortly about this whole award season that will speak to that. And also, I cannot recommend enough watching FD Signifier's video about Sinners. It is like genuinely some of the best film analysis I have ever seen, and it's just truly a brilliant video. So anyway, cheers to Oscars weekend. I'm so excited, and I guess we'll see what happens.